when you walk past somewhere else, you remember when you were young.
How are we going to find our own identity? Every city, every place has its own identity.
Small retail shops and developed locally, not big brands obviously, just locally grown shops.
But some of the residents have lived here for long years, like 50 years, 80 years, so they have a strong belongings to this place.
People's impression about what need to be conserved is not necessarily something that is always measured. And that's the real challenge.
Leeumun, an old fishing village on the eastern edge of the New Territories. A slice of Hong Kong as it might have been 100, 150 years ago. The history is in the name. Leeumun actually means carp channel, a reference to the channel between here and Hong Kong Island that used to be teemed with carp. But take a moment to look around and you will see that everywhere Hong Kong is changing. Those skyscrapers over there are emblematic of the new Hong Kong, a Hong Kong that is constantly under the threat of development, a Hong Kong where no one seems to want to preserve cultural heritage for the future. Only somewhere, at least, they have tried.
From a point of historical view, this kind of building in Hong Kong is quite unique at the moment, because you can see other old buildings are all break down. So now when you see this kind of old building in Hong Kong, it's worth to keep it. But actually you can, when you go to other country, you can see, especially in Southeast Asia, you can see quite a lot of buildings even more older than Blue House. But in the context of Hong Kong, you know, in the urban development, just we can't, I mean, the government just don't want to keep this kind of building. That's why at the moment in Hong Kong, the value of Blue House is, it's like a symbol, and the symbol of the past time and how people live in this city.
The Blue House was erected in the mid-1920s in the traditional Chinese Tong Lao style that was popular at this time. Wan Chai used to be full of Tong Lao buildings. Few remain. The Blue House was saved thanks to a dedicated revitalisation effort. But all around it, the neighbourhood has changed.
I'm seeing more and more of the changes. I'm feeling more and more of it. Like 20 years ago, when I started to pay attention, there's still, in this neighborhood, I'm still seeing a lot of the older building around this neighborhood. I'm seeing a lot more of those familiar faces. But in the past, I would say 7 years, I'm seeing less and less of those familiar faces. In the past 3 years, I'm losing more of them. But I'm seeing more of the so-called the middle class, the white collar, we said. I am seeing more of the white low in this neighborhood.
利東街眼見到今時今日嘅利東街同以前嘅利東街，大家都知道係兩件唔同嘅事，因為舊有嘅灣仔區呢係一個盤地嘅形式嚟嘅，咁其實佢係比較多一啲基本嘅買賣形式，咁但係而家今時今日見到嘅灣仔呢，其實係主要有幾大點啦。第一就係 咖啡啦、cake shop 啦，仲有嘅就係 jewelry 啦。咁你見到呢啲咁嘅叫做高增值嘅商業性咧，就進駐咗灣仔咧，其實對灣仔嚟講唔係一件咁好嘅事咯。有好多人覺得，灣仔係窮人嘅地方，過去有人好覺得，但係今時今日咧，原來灣仔咧已經係一個窮人好難喺灣仔生活嘅地方咯。
Wan Chai at the beginning of time is just but a fishing village. Of course, we can't expect it to be a fishing village up to these days, but it's a humble neighborhood. I'm not seeing that anymore.
I guess to us, Bullhouse is safe, but I guess, as I've mentioned before, to keep the Bullhouse is not the ultimate objective of the Bullhouse team, but to make it a demonstrative model for other preservation projects. So I guess our next step is to promote this model to other projects which is in danger.
One person that does know quite a bit about architectural conservation and heritage preservation is Dr. Hoyin Lee, who runs the architectural conservation programs at Hong Kong University. I sought him out to ask whether preserving Hong Kong's cultural heritage was always going to play second fiddle to the economy.
The mentality of the social attitude towards conservation is still very much a third world model of struggling between economic development and conservation. And conservation is about future, and the benefit cannot be measured in monetary term, not in short-term monetary term. It's about social benefit, and this is not monetary, and it's for the long-term development of a society. Whereas the economic development, obviously, it brings immediate financial benefit. And again, as I said before, this is more like a generational struggle. The people of my age, in the 50s, who are established, who are in a position of making decisions, they tend to cling onto the older model. Whereas the younger people, because of upbringing, they're financially secure because of the parents, and they have not gone through any hardship compared with the previous generation, the war, and livelihood. So there's less of the kind of hardship. So they tend to aim for or something that's more idealistic. And I mean, this is natural. It's part of a city's growing up process. So we are kind of going through a very awkward adolescence period of the Hong Kong society.
Sure. I mean, do you think cultural preservation can ever be made to sort of work hand in hand with economic development? Because whether you're talking about a sort of third world society or mentality or very developed country, money always talks. Mm-hmm. So how can the two be? Are the two ever compatible?
It can be compatible. In the past, and when our architectural conservation programs started in 2000, and we try to argue, of a model in which you do not have to balance development with conservation, and we argue that it's a flawed model, because by putting conservation in balance with development, that means the two are against each other, and by assuming this position, you will always end up as a zero-sum game, because both sides will try to win, or of course the stronger part will win everything, and the weaker part will lose everything. Just in the case of Lidong Street, where development won almost everything, and there was almost nothing left to conserve. And so our argument is that there is another way that conservation can be integrated with development to produce the best form of the highest quality of development. But we didn't have the kind of documentary support, policy support to back up our argument until 2011, and then UNESCO came out with this document called the Historic Urban Landscape, and this is a convention-like document in which cities can sign up, and by signing up to this approach, and the city government will have the obligation to fulfill the requirements of this approach. And in this Historic Urban Landscape approach, or HUL, has been heavily promoted by UNESCO. They talk about development, that a city, for the long-term sustainable development, a city has to be diverse form of development, and Hong Kong is still stuck with the third world form of development, meaning big investment, big development, which require big scale, large scale demolition, which is very destructive to established community. And so what UNESCO is arguing through HUL is that we need development, there's no question about it, and conservation can play a part in this development by diversifying the development to add like smaller scale, boutique scale development, and that doesn't require demolition. So it's through renovation, refurbishment that will bring higher value to existing property and to revitalize the area, to bring more job opportunity and a commercial activity. And so in essence, you are producing the best of the form, the highest quality form of development, and in addition to the more ordinary, more mundane form of development. So a city needs the kind of diversity in order to be sustainable into the future.
Do you think the government should be playing a bigger role in this?
Yes, so like what I have just mentioned, I think instead of a single buildings, maybe the government can also take care the landscape. The blue house has been preserved, but the surrounding animals have changed rapidly, and I guess this is one of the areas to improve in the policies of preservation in Hong Kong, like because like in the Europe country they have a new area and old area, so all the developments go to new areas, and the old town has to be preserved in terms of the town. But in Hong Kong, like preservation still go to the point, the buildings itself. Only single buildings can preserve, but the neighborhood, the landscape, the government don't have like kind of the mentality to preserve.
So, it's a very good question. The Blue House may have been saved thanks to the tireless efforts of a group of community activists. But what about the rest of Hong Kong? Is the government doing enough to preserve cultural heritage elsewhere? One man that would have a view has his offices in here. He is Andrew Lamb, who is the chairman of the Antiquities Advisory Board, and I'm going to visit him. You know, do you think in Hong Kong enough is being done to preserve, the country's architectural and cultural heritage?
Well, certainly not. If we consider it, I mean, when we say we, it's not just the Antiquities Advisory Board, it includes the government, that we won't need to launch the policy review last year, or actually it's a year before last. So for sure, we do see quite a lot of inadequacies in this particular field, and there are particular areas that we would like to kind of focus on against the current social, political, and economic context. And I think we just have to kind of keep moving on. That process didn't start year before last. Actually, the big movement in a way started as early as 2002 when the first policy consultation was launched, and then some big changes came in 2006, 2007, and several years afterward we launched another policy review. So I think it's clear enough that we have to move forward, and but we may not be able to address each and every issue to the extent some of us like to see. Let's look at what we've put forward back in 2006, 2007. One main area is to push forward the partnership scheme, which we dealt with government-owned properties, built heritage properties, and then the government would identify through the partnership scheme an operating partner. The operating partner wouldn't be a commercial partner. They're practically NGOs with social enterprise, vision and mission, and would run the property with the social mission plus financial and economic sustainability. Of course, the starting ground is a proper and decent built heritage conservation plan. Right? After roughly 5-6 years. We're on the 4th batch at the moment. We've done, and in the progress, dealt with about 13 different built heritage in Hong Kong. It's not a lot in terms of number, but it's a big milestone. Some of these projects are already in operation and gain quite a bit of support from the general society. There are hotels, there are creative industry sports, there are Chinese urban medicine hub, different usage. So attract quite a bit of attention and support. I would say these are achievements. And then but the biggest thing is actually the more and more younger generation, new generation, show the support towards built heritage conservation. I think we must actually kind of keep our pace with the general community. It's not just about a small bunch of people, kind of running ahead of the others, 1,000 miles. That doesn't work in public policy. So that's how I see, what we have achieved in the past, 10, 15 years or so. But as I said, there are certainly much more to do.
Of course, the Antiquities Advisory Board is just that, an advisory body. Although it sits within the Home Affairs Office of the government, it doesn't set policy. It gives advice and recommendations, and it isn't always listened to. An important case where it wasn't listened to was the Ho Tung Gardens, which in 2011 it declared a protected monument. 2 years later, the government decided to ignore that, and it was torn down. The ground on which the Ho Tung Gardens, which was this beautiful villa on the peak in central Hong Kong, stood, was sold for 5.1 billion Hong Kong dollars. That's nearly $1.5 billion US dollars per metre. That is the most expensive real estate ever sold in Hong Kong. So Andrew Lam may be able to talk about what is being done to preserve cultural heritage and what the government should be doing, but he doesn't set policy. For that, we have to look a little bit higher in government. I contacted the Development Bureau of the Hong Kong government. They said that their officials weren't prepared to go on camera for this documentary, but they did send me this statement. Heritage buildings have witnessed the development of our city and are no doubt valuable and unique assets of our community. Through preservation of these historic buildings, we can learn more about our past and the evolution of our society, which in turn helps us develop a sense of identity and belonging to our beloved city. This inheritance is something that we cherish, and we will continue to devote time, effort and resources for the conservation and revitalisation of our historic buildings. As our society becomes more developed, it is only natural that we have increasingly aspired for enrichment in life. People in Hong Kong have thus become more aware of the necessity to preserve our past heritage and attach greater importance to conservation of heritage buildings. In view of such rising expectation from the community for the preservation of our legacy, the government has announced the first policy statement on heritage conservation in 2007. As follows: to protect, conserve and revitalise as appropriate historical and heritage sites and buildings through relevant and sustainable approaches for the benefit and employment of present and future generations. In implementing this policy, due regard should be given to development needs and public interest, respect for private property rights, budgetary considerations, cross-sector collaboration and active engagement of stakeholders and the general public.
Thank you。啱啱呢首係深夜食堂。